All right, welcome everyone on Facebook Live and also on our Zoom channel. This is our very first Meet the Researcher Monday. We're very excited to have Dr. Candace Reno joining us. She is a University of Utah researcher, and Amy, a little bit about her. We are excited to have you guys as a guest. We hope to do this every Monday with some tremendous researchers to just have an open Q&A with them, to find out what they do in the world of T1D research and how the partnership with JDRF works with them. So we're really excited about that. And then this all ties in, of course, with our gala that's taking place on Saturday, May 30th. It's going to be live on KUTV Channel 2 News. We're really excited about that, and we're working through everything to make it a great, tremendous event and support all the great work going on at the University of Utah. We have a very great opportunity to, every donation that night through our Fund to Cure plan will go to JDRF and be earmarked for the work going on at the University of Utah that JDRF is currently funding. So you've heard enough about me talking, so let's have Amy take it over and introduce Candace.
Thanks so much, Mike. And hi, everyone. My name is Amy Colgan, and I am a development manager for the Mountain Valley chapter of JDRF. And I am really excited to be here facilitating this live Q&A today. If anyone listening has questions as we're going through these questions, just don't hesitate to type those into the comments section on Facebook or use the chat feature on Zoom. And so without further ado, today we have our special guest, Dr. Candace Reno. Candace is a JDRF-funded research assistant professor in the Division of Endocrinology, Metabolism, and Diabetes at the University of Utah. So welcome, Candace. And so with that, I would just like to ask you to give us a brief introduction about yourself and what brought you to the University of Utah.
Thank you, and thank you for doing this. This is exciting to be the first one here. I'm actually from Southern California, where I did my bachelor's and my master's from California State, San Bernardino, both in biology. It's actually where I started doing diabetes research, was there. But from there, I went to Washington University in St. Louis for the PhD program in molecular cell biology. Did a little bit of training post PhD at Yale for a few years, and my former mentor for PhD at WashU actually came to University of Utah and recruited me to University of Utah to do some research in his lab again. So I've been here for almost 5 years now, doing some training, again, still training before just recently becoming a research assistant professor. So I'm trying to basically get my own lab up and running right now in this time here.
Nice. Nice, that's exciting. So I know that your research involves reducing the risk of the dangers associated with hypoglycemia. And as someone living with type 1, I know that that is a huge concern and something that all of us are, worried about, especially at night when you have like those higher risk of not feeling a low or not hearing that alarm from your CGM. I know I've slept through many of those before and have had to deal with some scary lows. And so will you just tell us a little bit more about, that your research in that area specifically?
Yeah, so I'm focused on hypoglycemia research, so studying the lows. And I actually am looking specifically at how hypoglycemia can lead to cardiac arrhythmia. And this is just something that there wasn't a lot of research on it in the past few years, so I've really gotten into it a lot here, and my research is solely focused on that. And we use models in the lab that model type 1 diabetes, and what we can do in the lab for an experiment is drop their glucose levels in an experiment in a controlled environment, and we can actually look at their heart rhythm while hypoglycemia is occurring and see the changes that are happening. And once we found that these changes were happening, there were arrhythmias happening due to hypoglycemia. The goal is now, okay, we gotta stop that. So we've done different interventions, surgical, pharmacological, Definitely pharmacological is what the top priority is, because that's something that we can easily translate for clinical use. So the goal is to prevent the arrhythmias during hypoglycemia. We've had several good things come out of the research. One of the most recent publications I have is the use of beta blockers actually reduced arrhythmias and even prevented them during low glucose. So it's promising, and still trying to understand it better so we can get better targeting for treatments for it.
Were you able to determine like at what glucose level those arrhythmias were happening?
Yeah, fortunately, it's again, these are models, but in these models, it's severe hypoglycemia, and we actually it's pretty low levels is what it is.
Okay.
So luckily, at more moderate levels, it shouldn't be happening. But that's not to say it's not happening clinically. Everybody's different. So, but in the models, it's mostly some pretty low glucose levels.
Okay, like so, like maybe like lower than 20, like that kind of severe level, or
Lower than 20.
Okay, and like
yeah, exactly, lower than 20. And we do that to just control between experiments. I know humans hopefully are not getting that low very often, which I don't think they are. Research says at least. So that's
okay,
it.
I was going to clarify for anyone, I'm sure most that are joining us are either have type 1 or know someone with type 1, but if you're not familiar, a low blood sugar is really that below 70. A normal blood sugar for those that do not have type 1 diabetes is that 70 to 120. And I know as someone with type 1, we try to stay in that really 80 to 150, 180, and the closer you can stay in range from that 80 to 120, the better. But once you're hitting 70 and below, that's a low blood sugar, and 20 is definitely scary. So, you know, that's really interesting to hear too, that it's like an arrhythmia or like cardiac arrest basically. So if someone were to unfortunately pass from a low, is that what it's being attributed to, of just having like a cardiac arrest? Or
that's hard to answer.
Okay.
We often hypoglycemia. They've been doing this in some of the big clinical trial studies that have come out over the past couple decades, and you can't really attribute hypoglycemia causing something to happen before someone had passed away, unless maybe they were wearing a CGM or, and then even then, usually, so we can't really say that that's what happened in those cases. All we can say is that people come into the ER with severe hypoglycemia and they need assistance. They go to the ER, and if they can get rhythms on them for EKGs to look at their heart rhythm while their glucose is pretty low, they do see arrhythmias happening. And of course, the goal is that once you get the glucose to come back up, it's usually reversed, which is also a very good thing.
Yeah, definitely. So very cool. And so what was it that made you decide to want to do type 1 diabetes research specifically?
Yeah, I don't have a great story about that. So I have one family member, a cousin who has type 1 diabetes. He was diagnosed before the age of 2. Now he's in his 20s and very, very healthy and living life. But for me personally, I was just in the undergraduate at, studying biology, and I wanted to do research, and I happened upon the diabetes lab. And the more I researched about it, I just really became interested in the physiology of diabetes, and knowing that it was a growing problem in the world, I wanted to study it and try to make a difference with it. So that was an undergraduate. I started that and have continued ever since in the same field.
Very cool. It's always really inspiring to hear, people that are out there that are fundraising, and for you to be doing research and to not, I mean, you do have a direct connection with your cousin, but I think that's an incredible and moving story. And so I love hearing why people got involved with type 1 diabetes and helping us. So, what are some of the greater challenges that you face in your research?
I mean, there's day-to-day challenges in research. Some things fail, some things work. You spend most of the day troubleshooting experiments, which is kind of an exciting part of science. But I think one of the getting the funding to do these research projects is usually a challenge across the board in all sciences. Just trying to find funding that fits for you and is accessible to you. I've been lucky to be supported by JDRF the past 4 years now, so it's been very, very helpful, and it helps relieve the stress of your day-to-day work when you know you can get the things that you need to get the research done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know that this is not a cheap area to be in, and research definitely costs a lot of money. So, and as a researcher, what are some of the things you're most proud of?
Again, going on that day-to-day thing, you know, when you get something to work and it's an idea that you had, a hypothesis you had, getting something to work in the lab, it's just, you get a tremendous fulfillment from that. And then being able to see it moved into clinical trials is even more rewarding to me. I've seen that happen with, I mentioned the beta blocker study I did in the lab. Someone at the university started a clinical trial with that whole project in mind. So for me to see it move like that is really rewarding, that it can have an impact clinically.
Oh yeah, definitely. Very, very exciting and rewarding. What do you appreciate about working with JDRF?
Definitely the support. They have helped me in my early career. The JDRF support for funding especially has helped me early on in my career with the opportunities I was given because of the grants I had received, and also the training I've received with JDRF. They actually very recently in January, they flew me to New York at the headquarters to do some seminars and talk to the staff of JDRF. I got to meet in New York and just other fellow researchers like myself, learning from each other and what we're doing every day. But also like locally here in Salt Lake City, I've been able to do a couple of things like the walks and come to some of the galas. And for me, that's where it is for me. It hits home because I get to talk to people in the community and people with type 1 diabetes and really understand what the struggle is more, just to better aim my research to what is needed today. So
Yeah,
I love JDRF. Very supportive.
We love you, and I can say too, that's another really cool thing I think about this, and just being able to really connect our volunteers and our families, and especially our donors, to know that when you're giving to JDRF, like, you are supporting research and researchers just like you, and trying to ultimately our goal is to cure type 1 diabetes. But I know until then, if I can live and have a greater or a lesser fear of those hypoglycemias and have an improved lifestyle, I mean, that's really phenomenal and really incredible. And I've seen how much the technology has changed since being diagnosed 20 years ago, and it is just it's really cool to connect, I think, our donors to you. So another reason why we're just so appreciative that you're here and sharing your stories with us. So thank you. And kind of on that note, is there something more that we as chapter staff or volunteers could do to help you in your research or to support you?
It's just the same thing. Like you said, the donations are very helpful because that's what put the money in the pot, so to speak, for my grant to be available to me. And then that kept me in the field doing research and staying at the University of Utah and becoming promoted to professor to start my own lab. So it's very, very important to have that continual donations coming in. But just also the community awareness, the walks that JDRF puts on locally, those are great to become involved with. So I mean, I always try to get people like a team together to come together and do the JDRF walk, and I think that just helps the whole community be more aware that type 1 diabetes is here and we need to cure it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not going away. And kind of on that note, I just want to let people know, if they are not aware. So our chapter, we actually oversee both the state of Utah and Idaho. And so in Idaho, up in Meridian in the Treasure Valley, they're having a walk this May, on May 16th. It will be a virtual walk, just due to our current situation. And then our walks in Utah are still fielded for September. And so we can definitely share some more information about those as well with everyone. And we'd love to see you there in person in September and also virtually, you know, in May, with supporting our awesome families up in Idaho too. So
hey Amy, we have a question coming in. First, I want to ask a question. I know that you're using, Candace, you're using beta blockers and you're studying that. So walk us through what that means to the end user, the patient. So ultimately, what is your research going to come up with? Does this mean the person will take a daily dose of a beta blocker every day to help those combating those lows at night?
Right. So yeah, let me just start. That's a great question. I get that one all the time. Very important question. Let me just preface this that I'm not an MD, so I'm not giving medical advice here. I'm just talking about what's in the lab happening. And my ideal world here is, yeah, we use these drugs in the lab settings and the models to prevent arrhythmias during hypoglycemia. And the ideally, I mean, not ideally actually, is that not everybody can be on beta blockers or some other drug that we've found. So we're trying to find more mechanistically where we can better treat a more wider population of people with type 1 diabetes. Whether this is whether it's a pharmacology that you have to take a drug every day, or maybe we've even talked about the possibility of, can there be some kind of a rescue pen? So if you're in hypoglycemia, get your glucose back up, but can we also introduce some kind of drug that would help prevent the arrhythmias at the same time, kind of in a rescue setting? These are all just ideas. Nothing has really been developed about these things yet. So we're still trying to figure out what the best targets would be pharmacologically.
That's great. We got a question coming in from Facebook. Mark Smith asks, I see that you use diabetic mouse and rat models for diabetes. Is there caveats in using the model for your work?
Yeah, so the rat and mouse work is obviously not a human, right? So that's why we find things in the animal models, and then we can progress them up either to higher animals, which I don't do in my lab personally, but other labs do, and then eventually to humans in clinical trials. So there are some differences. Luckily, the heart of mouse and rat is very similar to a human heart, so it's a very good model to use. They're smaller animals, so they're also cheaper for us to get research-wise and easy to use in the lab. So it's a really good model. And yeah, they're not humans, but it's the best thing we can do to study something like hypoglycemia-induced arrhythmias, which would be very difficult to study in the human population.
And something that I didn't know, and so maybe people on Facebook or Zoom may want to know, there's diabetic mice. There's specific mice that you guys are able to get and obviously manipulate to help best do your studies. Could you maybe walk us through maybe those mouse models and what you guys have at your fingertips to use to help in these studies?
So that could be a very long answer. I'll try to make it a short answer. I mostly use rats, where we actually make them type 1 diabetic. But animal models, you can actually manipulate genes to study them. So you can take a protein out or put a protein in to better understand a process, such as diabetes, and how it's developed or how it can be prevented from occurring even. So basically in the lab, you have to manipulate an animal model to fit what you're doing, and that's just usually genetic techniques that allow you to either remove or put in a protein of interest and then study it that way. Lots of animal models available to do that. Technology has really come far in that sense.
Great. Are there any other Facebook questions right now?
No more Facebook questions coming. We have a lot of people watching, so that's good, but no questions as of yet.
Okay. No problem. So Candace, just another question here. What would a world without type 1 diabetes mean to you?
Yeah, that's an amazing thing to even think about. To me, it's people taking back their lives, not being controlled by what the glucose levels are telling them they need to do on a daily basis. Just being able to live freely on your own schedule, I think it'd be so freeing in my mind. Like I said, I don't have type 1 diabetes specifically, but I know, the struggle of what you guys go through, and I can't imagine that. So just the freedom, I think, would be great. That just do what you want when you want without checking your glucose to do it.
Right.
It would be amazing.
It really would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, like I said, your research is really exciting. And honestly, even to be in a world to not have to, like I said, worry so much about those lows, until we find that cure, or, those severe risks of when you do have those lows. I mean, that would also be pretty life-changing as well. So your research, can make a really, really big impact on people that are living with type 1. My last question is, I will then hope we'll get a few more questions fielded on Facebook and Zoom. It's not research related, but as you know, our gala this year is Footloose themed. Great movie from the 80s. And so I did just kind of want to ask you what your favorite 80s movie is.
There's a lot of great 80s movies. I think what it comes down to is it's got to be Back to the Future, because I watch that movie all the time, and it never gets old. That's probably one of my favorites.
Nice. That's an excellent choice. I feel like my niece was just talking about getting a hoverboard for her birthday, and I was like, what is this Back to the Future stuff that's happening right now? But very cool. Well, Mike, did you see any additional questions come in, or?
No other additional questions. I just wanted to take a minute too and just thank you, Candace, for taking some time and answering the questions that we have had, and to make this, make your time available to us. I know that although you may not be in the lab every day, that you guys are being able to take this opportunity while things are slow. You guys are so busy doing research that when things are a little slower and you're unable to get in the lab right now, you are able to collaborate with other researchers. Gives you opportunities to write grants, to get additional research funding. So that is super important. So we really appreciate you taking some time with us right now, and taking, just taking a moment and sharing with the folks here on Zoom and on Facebook and people in our chapter. And obviously this is going to become available, and we want to see some questions come up after we've posted it, and we'd love to get back with you and see if you can help us answer those.
Yep. Yeah, thank you guys for doing this. This is amazing to be able to talk to the community.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, anyone listening, if you also want to email us questions, you can email our chapter. It's mountainvalley@jdrf.org. I know last week we had Jennifer Hill. She answered some questions. And so our chapter website is jdrf.org/Mountain Valley. And if you click on the news section, you can learn some more about her research. You can also learn about our different events, and also find links to donate and to give a Fund to Cure gift this year, which would just make an incredible impact on the research that's happening at the University of Utah. So please visit our website and ask us any questions, or let us know how we can help you all out there too. So
yes, we look forward to next Monday and to try to do this all at least through the month of May. And thank you, Candace, again so much for joining us. We really appreciate your work. It does mean a lot to all of us here at JDRF and people living with type 1 diabetes. And so thank you so much, and we will see you soon.
All right, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
thanks, bye.